We are back, and we are joined now by Graham Platner, Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate in Maine, hoping to take on Susan Collins in the general election in 2026. Graham, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Uh, you are not apparently just a listener to the Majority Report. You previously called in, which is amazing. So,
This
this
is,
is
in fact, what's very funny is that it was a couple of years ago now, and I was on. I would call in some days when I was out on the oyster farm, and the one day that I actually made it through, a thunderstorm hit in the exact same moment, and so I was trying to talk to Sam while the quality was just horrific. Yeah, it was. I was like, of course, this is the moment. This is the
yeah,
moment.
I'm
This call
sure.
quality is significantly better, so that's good.
That's good. That's good. I mean, we have the power of video calls now and Wi-Fi. I really appreciate you coming on today. I'll start off with another kind of cheeky question here. Can you promise us that you will not be another John Fetterman?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact,
Okay, great.
I saw a tweet yesterday that said Graham Platner's God apologizing for John Fetterman, which I got a very hearty chuckle out of.
Well, I mean, for starters, you are unambiguous in your condemnation of Israel's genocide in Gaza. You use
Yes.
that term. You are a veteran. You served 4 tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. Can you speak a little bit about your service, how it affected your perspective on the current genocide in Gaza, and of course, America's role in the Middle East?
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, I mean, it's a story of disillusionment. I certainly joined the Marine Corps, even though I had a lot of reservations about the war in Iraq. I still felt that there was going to be a goodness and something we could do, and it was hard for me to believe that after a while. It also really began to make me question kind of the structures of American foreign policy. I began to we never seemed to be living up to the things we were claiming to do, the tactics and the strategies that I would see deployment after deployment after deployment never really matched up with these kind of grandiose claims. And there was a point where I just began to wonder, like, well, if we're not doing what we say we're doing, what are we doing? And it became fairly clear that what we were doing was transferring an immense amount of taxpayer wealth into the pockets of a fair amount of very wealthy defense contractors, all on the backs of the young men and women we sent overseas to suffer and die, and on the backs of the untold amount of civilians in the countries that we conducted these operations in. And
And go ahead if you want to expand on that. I mean, I think
no,
it's
I mean, that's pretty much the core of it. I like at this point, I've just become deeply critical of the American foreign policy establishment, and the behavior that continues to happen reflects that same criticism. We have not begun to learn. We continue to do these utterly horrific, and in my way of thinking, it completely, this does nothing for Americans. None of
yeah.
this stuff benefits working class Americans. Nothing in Sullivan, Maine improved because of the wars in Iraq or Afghanistan. Nothing in Sullivan, Maine is going to improve because of our funding of a genocide. It has nothing to do with these things. And that is not where we should be spending our money, both morally, but also just as a nation.
It's a very simple answer, I think, for folks to get behind. And this is really broadly the consensus when you also cross partisan lines. But I know Maine has a really independent streak. Of course, you have Senator Angus King, who is an independent but caucuses with the Democrats. And then you have, of course, Susan Collins, who is running again, obviously. But I just am flummoxed as to how she has hung on for this long. Like the in 2020, she won re-election by 8 points,
Yeah.
and Biden won that race.
Yep.
And what is your view on the failures of the Democratic Party in your state of Maine to come up with a candidate that can challenge somebody who should be quite vulnerable in many of these races?
Well, look, I'll just be upfront. I don't even think it's this Democratic Party in the state of Maine. I think it's the Democratic Party nationally.
Right.
Like the 2020 race, Sarah Gideon, who had served many years in the Maine legislature, was a good legislator, and but was anointed by the party in D.C. And there really wasn't much of a process of finding anyone else. They just decided that she was the best candidate, and then they ran a kind of standard campaign. The field operations were not a big part of it. It was I think they raised $60 million in that race, and far more than Susan Collins needed to spend. And they just blew it on mail. I mean, there was a joke back then where like, we don't have to like even get firewood this year. We're all just saving up the mailers. We're just gonna burn them the wood stuff. So it was ridiculous. And both the fact that like, I don't think she could appeal across this kind of more independent streak. I think she drove out the Democratic base, but that was it. And then it was a campaign that was, and for the record, my understanding is not their fault at all. It was driven by the national level, and it was just focused on kind of standard campaigning. And so I think Collins has held on. One, because back then there was still a little bit of that myth, even though we were seeing the truth, that the myth still held on. The myth doesn't hold on now. I mean, that's gone. I know Republicans who are my neighbors who are like, Susan Collins has got to go. She's clearly just full of it. So like, it's not even working with her constituent or her base. Right. Certainly not working with Democrats. But I fear that and the reason I've jumped into this race, quite frankly, is that I fear that there is some idea floating around of doing the exact same thing as 2020, having an establishment candidate that comes out of the political machine, chosen in many ways by DC, campaigning in the same way that these campaigns have all failed in the past. And Susan Collins is uniquely weak right now, and yet there might be the ability to choose a uniquely bad candidate for this specific race. And I don't think I'm that candidate. I think I'm a good candidate. I think I can appeal across the divide. I live in a small town. In many ways, this is not I didn't set out to do this. I was approached to do it, and I'm not doing it because somebody asked me to, but it wasn't my idea. I hadn't thought of it. And when it came up, I was like, it really does seem like there's an opportunity here to build a kind of politics again that comes out of the legacies of organized labor, comes out of the legacies of the civil rights movement, to build movement politics.
Yep.
And to run campaigns focused on field organizing, building connection across community organizations and labor organizations and political organizations. The only way that we are going to be able to survive the rise of fascism in America is to build a robust working class politics again. And I feel like that is a thing that we here in Maine are currently uniquely suited to do. And I'm really excited to get that ball rolling. Well, it already has, I guess. But
it's very exciting.
Days have been pretty wild, so.
I mean, I know that you have some progressive folks who are on your campaign working. Morris Katz joined from the Zoran campaign to help with your race, as well as Joe Calvello, who was on Bernie Sanders' campaign and then on Fetterman's staff, but resigned, as many did, given his turn. So you have like some progressive organizers who understand this kind of thing behind you. Did you feel compelled to kind of get out ahead of some of the rumblings about 77-year-old Governor Janet Mills running in the race? I don't know if she's going to do it, but like you're the first candidate really to declare, and it gives you kind of a bit of a head start, it seems.
I'll just be upfront. We didn't launch when we did because of that. We launched when we did because we had put the groundwork in to build a launch day that we could get. So and I'm not doing this to keep other people out of the race. I mean, I firmly believe in a healthy primary process, which I wish certain elements of our political establishment still did.
Exactly.
I think a primary process is good. It allows voters to engage with candidates and with issues, and it can really narrow down what people really want. I also think in many ways it's how we exercise the muscle that we're going to need to fight in the general. So I think there's an element of that too. It's kind of, you got to hone your skills, and you can do that in a primary. But we launched this the way we want to because we could, because we had done the work to make it happen. We're not on somebody else's timeline. We're not asking anybody permission. We put together what we thought was going to be an effective start, and it far surpassed my expectations. So I'm feeling quite good about that. But yeah, I don't. We didn't do this because of any other external input.
Right.
We did this because it was our internal plan.
The write-up of you in Politico talks about how you reject the term kind of liberal. You're more of a, say, like a populist Democrat or a progressive Democrat. Like, how would you characterize your politics for folks? And I'm thrilled to see people reject liberalism towards leftism. That's very exciting to me, and I like that that was even included. How would you describe your ideology overall?
I mean, at its core, it's a working class ideology that is built in movement politics. So I take my inspirations from the labor movement. I take my inspirations from the civil rights movement. American history is not a history of working people asking permission to get things from those in power. Every good thing that we have gotten, quite frankly, for working people in this country does not come from writing a strongly worded letter to someone in power and then they just give it to you. We need to build power. We need to build organizational power, both in communities and workplaces. We need to build a much deeper structure of power through our political apparatus in a way that we can leverage it far after campaigns come and go.
Yep.
The core of my politics is Jane McAlevey. I heard her on this show. I read her books. I took Organizing for Power because my background here is a community organizer. It's not in electoral politics. It was in her kind of critique of this, the inability for much of modern American liberal politics to have a theory of power, and I believe that. I firmly believe that power, there is no strata in our society that is made to hold power. Power exists and can be taken and utilized by those who are willing to build the mechanisms necessary to do it. A lot of money means it's pretty easy to have power in the system that we have, but that can be fought against with a lot of people. But that's where the work happens, and that's the hard part. I mean, it's easy to raise a bunch of money and just go pay some consultant to like drum up some lobbying thing for you. It's a lot harder to organize your community. But if we are going to build a working class politics in this country that is based on actually building power and using it to get what we need, and to frankly claw back a lot of resources from those who have used horrific policy for the past 40 years at a minimum to steal it from us, that's what we need to do. So I have to throw out Jane's name because we are diminished. I think in this moment, she would be a incredible force of nature to have with us. At least we are lucky enough that she could pass that all down.
Absolutely, and people should read her books as well. That's totally she's inspirational to me as well, and to so many other people. Rest in power, Jane. Then, let's talk a little bit about your platform. I mean, your website kicks off with a critique of billionaires and how our government is bought and paid for by billionaires. I mean, how I should have known that you're MR listeners that you have postal banking on your platform, which
That is correct.
I texted Sam about this already. He's on vacation, but he's very excited.
I wasn't sad to hear that I was coming on Thursday because I'm a majority supporter. So,
yes.
But I was like, at some point, I'm gonna have to talk to Sam because I think postal banking is a spectacular program that we really need to invest in. But it's honestly, but to be just upfront, that stuff. While those are policies I'm going to press, the real things are going to be healthcare and housing, and
Yeah.
ending foreign wars. I mean, I like those are. I don't
Medicare for
think
all.
Medicare for all.
Yep.
100%. Yeah. I mean, I'm an automatic yes vote for Medicare for all.
Nice.
I also think that we need to come up with housing solutions that aren't merely going to take like taxpayer dollars, put them into some developer's bank account, and let them build rental units to like bleed people like monthly. We need to build more housing, but we also need to couple it with programs that are going to support Americans getting into homes that they own at the point in their lives where they want to own a home. And VA home loans are a thing that a lot of friends of mine got to buy houses at a point where if they hadn't been veterans and didn't have access to that, they wouldn't have been able to. But we need to look at all these things like very structurally, because there are pitfalls in doing some of this stuff and say allowing large corporate landlord companies to still exist because they'll figure out ways to leverage policy to benefit themselves. But like that's for me, that's the crux of all this. If people can't get healthcare, people can't put roofs over their heads, and all that money is going out the door to fund a genocide. That's what needs to stop first. And for me, that's the real core, the core of the message, because that's how people are interacting with this right now. In Eastern Maine, our healthcare system is collapsing, and the Medicaid and Medicare cuts have not even come down the pike yet. So.
Yeah. I mean, the rural hospital closures are definitely going to impact, I would imagine, Maine. And you're, as somebody, who works outside, as an oyster farmer, you also have a focus on the environment, and our climate. How do you plan to meld the working class forward politics that you describe with a climate agenda that supports those workers, but also moves us forward in terms of trying to curb the worst effects of climate change?
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I'm going to want to talk to Matt and David about this because I listen to this discussion a lot on Left Reckoning.
Love this interview. I mean,
the climate. I mean, look, I'm an oyster farmer. The Gulf of Maine is one of the second fastest warming bodies of water on Earth, and we rely on it for a lot of our industry here, both aquaculture, but more so commercial fishing, lobstering. And so protecting it, making sure that we have a sea that we can rely on for a long time to come is paramount to me. But I also want to make sure that whatever the solutions we start to look for, they do not saddle working people with both the debt and, frankly, the guilt. I always will find it amusing that everybody's supposed to feel bad about drinking out of a straw when ExxonMobil still exists. So we need to look into these solutions in ways that are going to make the people and the industries and the corporations that made the problems are the ones that have to foot the bill. It's all going to be very expensive. It all is going to take an immense amount of investment and resources. That should not be on the backs of working people here in the United States or elsewhere, for that matter. They're not the people that broke it. And when we look at these solutions, to me, that needs to be forefront in our minds when we try to come up with policies on how to fix this stuff.
Yeah, and your website it's very detailed, which is something I really love, and I can see some of the Zoran influence there, where there's no talking down to folks. You explain exactly where you stand on a variety of different issues. People should go to your site and they can check out exactly what your agenda is. How can people help support your campaign? I would imagine that you're only taking small dollar contributions, so of course that's a way to help. But tell us a little bit about your campaign contributions and how people can help you out. Obviously, your website is grahamforsenate.com. People can go there, but in your own words, what would be most helpful?
Of course, I mean, yeah, small dollar donations. We're not taking corporate PAC money. I mean, clearly. I mean,
yeah. It seemed self-evident. Yeah.
And so for that, we're definitely relying. So any little bit that people can pitch in, it means a lot. And that being said, though, on top of that, we want to build a real campaign here, not a campaign of just raising money and spending it on consultants to buy a bunch of stupid TV ads that were modeled after the 1980s. We need people to phone bank. We need people who have any connections with Maine to get your neighbors involved. Go on the website, fill out the volunteer forms. The more volunteers we get, the more we can really start building out the apparatus of a true movement. I mean, this is all very weird for me, and I'm just going to be upfront about this. I have dreamed for years of seeing movement politics return to this country. And for some weird accident of history, I find myself here being the voice for it. And it's not a thing I set out to do. A month ago, I thought servicing a couple moorings around Frenchman's Bay was the height of my stress. So it's all very odd. But I believe in this. I deeply believe that this is the only way forward. And so I want people to come into this and get involved as being part of a larger movement, just like Bernie showed us the way. I mean, Bernie really, for me, is not just an inspiration in policy and politics, but as an inspiration in thinking about this stuff as a movement. It needs to be a movement. And the only way that we get to do any of this, the only way we get to actually go down, if I go to, when I win and when I go to DC, my vote is not going to get us Medicare for all. We need to have a deeper apparatus. We need to have a deeper movement that can put pressure on legislators around the country to make this stuff happen. And I want to bring people in to do that. So if that sounds like something you might be interested in getting involved in, which I hope a lot of listeners to MR would be those folks, it's certainly why I am. It would mean a hell of a lot to me if you could go to the website and sign up, and also donate, of course. But
well, Space Lennon writes in, just donated, left is best. So we're getting the word out. Really appreciate your time today, Graham. And of course, we're going to be tracking your race for quite a while. We will put a link to your site down below where people can find all of these links. But it's also just Graham for Senate, for spelled not the number way, the correct way, grahamforsenate.com. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Graham.
Thank you very much. And just keep up the good work. What you guys do is why this is happening. So be very proud.
I don't know about that, but really appreciate what you're doing. Thanks so much.
Thanks a lot.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.